Welcome to Narrations, where we revisit timeless stories and make them live again through voice and imagination. Tonight, we return to 1980s New York City, where family dinners, unspoken desires, and quiet forgiveness intertwine like music beneath the noise of Manhattan. This is Hannah and Her Sisters, a film that listens to the tiny beats between love and loneliness. It begins with Thanksgiving, the first of three that frame a whole year of their lives. Hannah stands in her sunlit apartment, moving from stove to table with the grace of someone who's been doing this for years. She knows exactly how much pepper her father likes on his potatoes and which wine won't start another argument between her parents. She balances everything: timing, temperaments, and the illusion that everyone is happy. Her husband Elliot watches from the kitchen doorway. To anyone else he looks like the picture of contentment, a successful financial advisor with a steady marriage and a loving home. But something in his eyes betrays him, a kind of restlessness that refuses to quiet down. It starts with a glance, a moment that lasts a beat too long across the table toward Hannah's sister Lee. Lee is the middle sister, thoughtful, soft-spoken, searching. She lives downtown with Frederick, an aging painter whose talent is matched only by his bitterness. He despises television, social gatherings, and most people under 40. Their loft is a museum of unfinished canvases and half-closed curtains. Lee loves him in the way you love a teacher, grateful, but tired of learning the same lesson. When she visits Hannah's apartment, the noise and warmth feel like oxygen. Then there's Holly, the youngest. She's a chaotic spark, bouncing from audition to audition with a heart too big for her own good. When she walks in late, arms full of flowers she can't afford, the room lifts. Her parents adore her, but they worry. Everyone does. She never seems to find what she's looking for, not a career, not love, not peace. But for now, she laughs too loud and calls for more wine. As the camera moves around the table, we see the entire family, talking, teasing, avoiding. Alan's camera makes the room feel alive but fragile. Every face holds a story it can't say out loud. Elliot tries to look away from Lee but fails. When she smiles at something Holly says, his heart stumbles. He tells himself it's nothing, admiration, maybe brotherly affection, but it stays with him long after the guests have gone. That night, lying beside Hannah, he thinks about Lee's voice, the way she tucks a strand of hair behind her ear. He feels ashamed and alive all at once. Lee returns to Frederick's loft, and the contrast is cruel. He lectures about art critics and spiritual decay while she makes dinner in silence. He doesn't ask about her day. When she mentions Hannah's Thanksgiving, he grunts. Too many bourgeois distractions. She smiles faintly, but her eyes say what her mouth won't: she wants to be seen. Weeks pass. Elliot finds excuses to visit Hannah's parents, or drop off something at Lee's building. He plans each meeting like a crime he's not sure he'll commit. When they finally end up alone in a bookstore, he blurts, "I think about you constantly." Lee freezes. Her hands tighten around a novel she hasn't been reading. She whispers, "Elliot, you're married to my sister." He nods, ashamed, but the confession hangs there, electric, irrevocable. They walk outside into a light snow. Neither knows what to say. He offers her a cab. She refuses, and they part with a look that means they will meet again, because wanting someone you shouldn't is a magnet you can't turn off. Back in Hannah's apartment, the holidays continue: children, friends, a Christmas tree glowing by the window. Hannah moves through it all with grace, but Elliot is elsewhere. Every gesture, passing her the cranberry sauce, helping with decorations, feels like an act performed for an audience he no longer believes in. He loves her, and that's the worst part. It would be easier if he didn't. Meanwhile, Holly's life spins in another orbit entirely. After a terrible audition, she meets a man named Mickey, Hannah's ex-husband, a TV producer and professional worrier. He's neurotic, funny, and utterly lost in his own mind. They argue about music, laugh about bad movies, and both pretend they don't need company. It's awkward and wonderful, a different kind of chemistry than Elliot's forbidden romance with Lee, less fire, more oxygen. Holly and Mickey's friendship becomes the story's lighter heartbeat. But in the background, the danger grows. Elliot can't stop himself. One afternoon, after running an errand for Hannah, he drives past Lee's street and finds himself ringing her bell. When she opens the door, surprised but not entirely unhappy to see him, the air changes. They talk, they laugh nervously, and then, inevitably, he kisses her. It's clumsy and desperate, and she doesn't pull away. When he leaves, his hands are shaking. He knows he's crossed a line that can't be uncrossed. And for the first time in years, Hannah's perfect life has a crack running through it, one that no one can see yet, but everyone will feel. The days that follow are quiet, almost deceptively so. Manhattan carries on with its winter rhythm, buses groaning through slush, shop windows glowing with post-holiday lights, while Elliot walks through it like a man sleepwalking through his own life. He goes to work, he laughs at Hannah's jokes, he kisses her goodnight. But his mind is somewhere else entirely, replaying the warmth of Lee's breath, the sound of her voice trembling when she said, "We can't do this." They tell themselves it was a mistake, that it will never happen again. But a week later, Elliot finds another reason to see her. Then another. Their encounters are brief, secret, and threaded with guilt, stolen hours in bookstores, whispered conversations in coffee shops, a trembling kind of happiness that feels doomed even as it blooms. Lee, for all her sensitivity, is swept into it against her better judgment. For the first time in years, someone looks at her not as a muse or a project, but as a woman. Elliot's adoration becomes intoxicating. But each time she returns home, Frederick's heavy silence greets her like a conscience. His world, full of books and theories, feels smaller now. His words cut sharper, his criticism less philosophical and more personal. "You're distracted," he says one night, eyes narrowing. "You've been somewhere else." She lies, says she's been visiting her sisters, and he laughs bitterly. "Ah yes, the perfect family. How dull." When she finally confesses she wants to move out, he looks at her the way a scientist watches a specimen disintegrate. "Go ahead," he says coldly. "You'll find the same emptiness wherever you go." She packs her bags that night. For Elliot, the fantasy quickly becomes unbearable reality. He can't stop the guilt. Every gesture from Hannah now feels like a spotlight. When she touches his shoulder or thanks him for helping with dinner, he flinches. She doesn't notice at first. She's too busy planning the next family gathering, helping Holly with rent, calling their parents. Her energy seems endless. She moves through life with grace, never realizing how much she gives and how little she keeps for herself. Holly's own life becomes a counterpoint, messy, funny, and hopeful. After another disastrous audition, she meets Mickey again by chance. He's sitting alone in a cafe, reading medical journals, convinced he has a brain tumor. She sits down, uninvited, and says, "If you were dying, you'd probably be too tired to worry about it." He laughs, surprised. Their friendship begins like that, humor against despair. Mickey's health scare turns out to be nothing, but it leaves a scar of existential panic. He starts exploring religion, first Catholicism, then Hare Krishna, then atheism, searching for meaning. "I'm terrified there's no reason for anything," he confesses to Holly one afternoon. She grins and says, "Then make one." Something about her blunt kindness breaks through his spiral. For the first time in a long while, Mickey smiles without irony. Meanwhile, Lee and Elliot continue their secret meetings. There are moments of genuine tenderness, quiet mornings, nervous laughter, the thrill of being wanted. But every stolen hour is shadowed by guilt. Elliot tells himself he'll end it after one more meeting, one more chance to explain himself. But love, or something like it, never listens to logic. Then comes spring. The city thaws, the streets grow brighter, and with the warmth comes clarity. Lee starts to see Elliot's anxiety for what it is, not passion, but panic. Every time he holds her, he also apologizes. Every moment of joy ends with him whispering, "I can't hurt Hannah." Eventually, the words become unbearable. She realizes he isn't looking for love, he's looking for escape. They meet one last time, on a bench in Central Park, the trees budding faintly above them. "I can't do this anymore," she says softly. "I care about you, But this isn't real. It's just borrowed time. He looks devastated, but deep down he knows she's right. When she walks away, he doesn't follow. Back at home, Hannah begins to sense something is wrong. It starts small, the way Elliot avoids her gaze, the way he seems distracted during dinner. One night, she asks if he's unhappy. No, he says quickly. Just tired. But even as he says it, she knows. There's a tremor in his voice that no denial can hide. The narrative shifts to Holly again, whose life, in contrast, begins to bloom. She takes up writing, turning her failures into stories. For the first time, she stops comparing herself to Hannah and Lee. She pours herself into her work, channeling her insecurities into dialogue and scenes that feel painfully real. When she nervously reads one of her pieces to her sisters, there's a moment of silence. Hannah smiles proudly, while Lee's eyes soften, the sister who was always drifting now anchored by words that feel true. The film drifts gently between their worlds, the calm of Hannah's home, the chaos of Holly's city life, the quiet loneliness of Lee's new apartment. Elliot drifts through it like a ghost, haunted by his own choices. Holly's friendship with Mickey blossoms into something deeper. He stops worrying about his mortality and starts noticing life again, the taste of coffee, the way light hits her hair, the absurd joy of surviving another day. She teases him about his paranoia, he teases her about her stubborn optimism, and somewhere between their laughter, love quietly sneaks in. By late summer, everything has changed. Lee is living on her own, learning to be still with herself. Hannah and Elliot are distant but still together. And Holly, of all people, seems happiest, a small miracle even she doesn't fully understand. But then comes the moment that breaks Hannah's world open. She's cleaning Elliot's office one afternoon, humming softly, when she finds a note, a small, folded piece of paper slipped between pages of a book. It's not signed, but she knows the handwriting. The words are simple. I miss you. I'm trying not to. Hannah stares at it for a long time. There's no confrontation, no shouting match, just a slow, devastating silence. When Elliot comes home, she looks at him differently. Who is she? She asks. He hesitates, too long. That's all the answer she needs. She doesn't cry. She doesn't scream. She just says quietly, I always thought we were lucky. Then she walks into another room and closes the door. The film lingers there, not on the drama, but on the stillness that follows when truth finally settles. The days that follow Hannah's discovery move slowly, thick with silence. Elliot lives inside that silence like a man walking through fog, everything muffled, blurred, distant. He tries to speak, but every word feels like dust. Hannah isn't cruel, she's simply quiet. She cooks, she answers questions, she moves around him like a ghost who still remembers being alive. Weeks pass before she speaks of it again. They sit at the table after dinner, the children asleep upstairs. Elliot apologizes, finally saying it aloud. I made a mistake. It sounds too small for the damage done, but Hannah only nods. She doesn't ask for details. She doesn't want them. What she wants, and maybe what she's mourning, is the version of love that existed before she had to forgive it. Lee, meanwhile, finds herself free for the first time in years. Her new apartment is quiet in a different way, not heavy, but open. There are bare walls, sunlight through half-hung curtains, the clatter of the city drifting in from the street below. For the first time, she can hear herself think. She paints again, but without the pressure of meaning. Sometimes, when she visits Hannah, they sit together with tea, talking around what happened but never naming it. Lee wants to apologize, but Hannah won't let her. It's done, she says gently. Let's just not live there anymore. Holly's story moves in the opposite direction, forward, upward, alive. Her writing begins to take shape. She turns small family moments into dialogue, memories into stories. When she sells her first piece, she can hardly believe it. At a party with friends, she laughs so loudly she scares herself, a sound of genuine joy, something new. Mickey is there beside her, calmer now, grounded. After all his spirals into mortality and meaning, he's discovered a strange faith in the ordinary. One afternoon, as they walk through Central Park, he stops and says, "You know, I used to think the world was meaningless. But maybe the meaning is just showing up. Being here." Holly laughs. "Then you finally caught up to the rest of us." He smiles back. They kiss, awkward, hesitant, but true. By autumn, time has softened the edges of everyone's lives. Elliot and Hannah remain together, not untouched, but repaired in the way fine china is repaired with gold seams, more fragile, yet more valuable for having been broken. Elliot, humbled, rediscovers gratitude. He stops looking for passion in crisis and begins to find it in peace, in his children's laughter, in Hannah's quiet humming when she folds laundry, in the simple mercy of another chance. Lee has begun seeing someone new, a kind, gentle man who listens more than he talks. It's not dramatic, not consuming, just kind. And that kindness feels revolutionary. Then, as if the circle must close, Thanksgiving comes again. The same apartment, the same table, the same family, but everything has shifted in small, human ways. The walls glow with light, music drifts softly from the living room. The parents are still bickering good-naturedly, the children still running through the halls. But there's a deeper warmth now, a quiet acknowledgement of all that's been endured. Hannah moves through her home with that same grace as before, but now it feels earned, not effortless. Elliot watches her from across the room, smiling at the sight of her joking with Holly. There's love in his eyes again, not the wild, restless kind, but the calm, mature love that grows after the storm. He crosses the room, touches her shoulder, and whispers, "Dinner smells amazing." She turns, looks at him, and for the first time in months, her smile reaches her eyes. At the table, Holly sits beside Mickey. They share quiet jokes, private glances, a small world of their own inside the larger one. Lee pours wine for everyone, laughing at something her father says. And then, without ceremony, Hannah lifts her glass. "To family," she says softly. The room echoes it back. "To family." Alan's camera lingers on their faces, imperfect, flawed, human. The conversation overlaps, the laughter rises, and the music swells under it all. The film doesn't give us dramatic closure, it gives us life, continuing, fragile, beautiful. Hannah catches Elliot's hand under the table and squeezes it once. He squeezes back. Holly laughs so hard she nearly spills her drink, and even her parents, who argue about everything, can't help smiling. The camera moves slowly through the room, the light of candles flickering against glasses, the shimmer of laughter, the comfort of survival. Then, just before the credits, Hannah turns her head and looks toward her sisters, one rebuilding, one discovering, all of them still together. It's a small look, but it says everything: we broke, and we mended. And that's enough. Because Hannah and her sisters isn't about betrayal or guilt, not really. It's about endurance. About the simple fact that people fail one another and still choose to keep trying. Love, in this film, is less a promise than a practice, something you rebuild every day. That's why the final moments linger, the sound of laughter echoing through an apartment that has seen tears, silence, and forgiveness. A reminder that even after heartbreak, life hums on, and sometimes the most ordinary dinners are the most miraculous scenes of all. So when the screen fades and the music of autumn jazz carries us out, you can almost feel the pulse of gratitude inside it, a quiet whisper that says, "We're still here." This was Hannah and her sisters, a story about imperfection, kindness, and the miracle of another Thanksgiving. If you enjoyed this retelling, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Narrations, where stories don't just end, they live on in the telling.